يا اهلا وسهلا، انا محمد تهامي، مؤسس باشن بوينت، واحده من الشركات الرائده في تطوير رياده الاعمال في مصر. والنهارده هنتكلم عن البراندنج. ضيفي المهم جدا في حلقه جديده من ذا ليج اوف بزنس ليجندز، اللي فيها بندعو اعظم عقول وخبراء البيزنس والانتربرينورشيب في العالم علشان يشاركونا خبرتهم عن ازاي الواحد ممكن يخوض رحله رياده الاعمال بسهوله وامان. فجزء البراندنج جزء مهم جدا بيغفل عنه الكثيرين او الكثيرون. هو ضيفي بقى العزيز ده واحد من اهم الناس اللي بيتكلموا في البراندنج في العالم. هو اسمه فابيان جيرهالتر. هو بيست سيلينج اوثر اوف 3 بوكس، هاو تو لانش ا براند، وكتاب تاني اسمه بيجر ذان ذس، وكتابه الاخير اسمه ذا براند ثيرابي بوك. هو برضو فاوندر اوف براند كونسلتنسي فيرم اسمها فينيان، واحده من الشركات اللي ليها ستايل واسلوب مختلف وخاص جدا. هحط لكم اللينك بتاعتها في الديسكربشن بتاع الشو، لانه بيعملوا الشغل بتاعهم بشكل مميز ومختلف تماما. لان هو المختلف في شغلهم ان هو حول البراندنج بروسيس من كرييتيف ابروتش لسيستماتيك ابروتش، عشان يحول اي بزنس انتو ان ادمايرد براند. وده حلم اي بزنس اونر، الناس كلها تحب البراند بتاعته وتبقى حابه ان هي تتكلم عنه كويس وتشتري منه كمان. فخلينا نتنقل لفابيان ونستفيد من خبرته. فابيان, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Looking forward to this.
Thank you. Let's start by your story. How did you get into the entrepreneurial world? Let's call it like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I studied communication design, which is very much, it's graphic design. It's just a better way of calling it. I studied it in Switzerland. I'm from Austria. I studied in Switzerland, came over to the United States, finished my studies, and then I got a full-time job, right? Like you know, we all do. I started off as a creative director, which was a very nice way of starting. Did 3 years in one company, did 3 years in another company. And to be honest, the minute that my work, my green card came in, so my work, visa, where I'm allowed to work for anyone at that point, I quit. I immediately started my own company. So I was just learning, on the job, and then I realized I need to run an agency. I need to start my own thing. I started very small with one intern, a very small freelance practice, and then more clients came knocking, and suddenly I hired the intern, and I had a full-time employee, and then it kept growing over the next years. I ran an agency for a good 12 years. We were up to 18 people. So it was a nice small business. And at that point, something happened where I realized that the way traditional agencies do branding, it doesn't work anymore. It's, it takes a long time. There's a lot of teams involved. No one really talks directly to the founder. It's not as integrated. So that was the time where I started to write a book called How to Launch a Brand, where I really thought about, what are the ways that you create a brand today? Like, what goes into it? And then I literally closed down my agency. I mean, we were doing well on the outside, but on the inside, I just knew that the system doesn't work anymore. I also worked really, really hard. I worked late nights, and I learned so much about entrepreneurship in those 12, 13 years, that I decided that you can actually make a really good living and have a normal lifestyle, a 9-to-5 world, and do something that you really love to do and be very creative about it. And so I created this consultancy called Finien. And now we have a very, very specific process in how to get brands launched. That's all we do. So I only do 3 things. That's all I do, right? If anyone comes and needs something else, I say, sorry, this is not for you, right? And I really, really enjoy it. And it's extremely satisfying. And now I mentor a lot of entrepreneurs. It's interesting because I kind of went through my own entrepreneurial journey, but I also work with so many entrepreneurs that I have a pretty good idea of what they usually, screw up, things that don't work out for them.
Wow, awesome. And I believe you have done a brilliant job from a branding perspective, because this is what branding, I believe, is all about. And the choice of how you describe your agency, Finien, when I saw that on your website, a purposefully small consultancy. These 3 words, I believe this is branding. The feeling that you want people to to get the perception and the meaning and the values and everything, the philosophy behind the brand is translated in these three words. So I believe this is a good starting point to talk about the truth about branding. What is branding? It's not a logo, it's not the colors, it's not the fonts. Branding is much more deep, and I believe you have a brilliant definition of what branding really is.
Well, you know, you would think I would have a brilliant definition because I answer this question, you know, at least twice a week. But I try to never remember what I answered before. So, you know, I always try to like say, you know, what is branding to me today, right? I mean, I really feel that branding at the heart is about identifying the purpose in a company and showcasing that purpose and shared values. And of course, you know, product value, but mainly purpose and shared values through your brand's atmosphere. And brand's atmosphere, what I mean by that is, you know, imagine there's kind of like this atmosphere around your offering, and the consumer has to poke through it, right? In order to even know what you do, they have to find out. So what is that? That's word of mouth. That's people seeing, you know, an ad on Facebook or Instagram. That's people seeing, you know, an advertising somewhere else, people getting an email newsletter, your website, you know, and what is that all combined of? That is all combined of words and images. And these words and images all need to go back to the core foundation of what your brand is, not what your product is, but what your brand is. So hopefully that describes it enough to kind of get going.
Yeah, of course.
It's
And
the elevator pitch of branding.
yeah, it's the number one missing piece in business. You have mentioned that several times, that most entrepreneurs and business owners miss the number one element that the customers see first. Because at the very beginning, they see the brand, the look and feel and the message and everything, and then they get to know about the products. But most business owners focus on their products and they forget about their brand. So can you...
Feature, right? Like everyone is like, what features do we have? We need one more feature. It's like, no, brand is your first feature, right? That's what people will see first. And it is so interesting. People still think, okay, well then let's create a nice logo, let's create nice colors, and that's the brand. But that is not a brand. That is just a nice logo and nice colors. And people may or may not find that attractive, right? But a brand is so much deeper. It's you know, Simon Sinek's why, you know, like why do you do what you do? Why would people care? What is at the heart of this? And especially with the next generation, right? With millennials, that generation, it demands purposeful companies. You know, you want to actually know where your money is going. And so that's why I think this is the heyday of branding. I think really exciting things are going to happen in the next couple of years with what brands can actually do.
Yeah. For so many years, the topic of branding was almost intangible. You don't know where to start with the name or the logo or the colors, or so many components to handle. And the brilliant thing you have done is that you turned that into a systematic approach to turn any business into an admirable or an admired brand. So can you give us a brief overview of your systematic approach?
Yeah, so you know, it's the systematic approach is not very patentable. It's not very trademarkable. It's really taking very common sense elements and just putting them in the right order, which people never do, right? You and I both work with a lot of entrepreneurs. The first thing that they do is come up with a name. You know, they don't quite know exactly what the company is yet. They're like, yeah, I think I want to do, but this is the name. And this is not how it works. So the way that it works is the very first thing entrepreneurs need to do, and most don't know about it, most forget about it, most, you know, rush through it, is create the brand strategy. Is really defining at the heart, what is this brand going to be about? What are our core values? What is our purpose? What is the legacy? If we, you know, if our brand lives for like 30, 40, 50 years, what is the legacy? What is the best we can achieve? Not financially, that's the business plan, but a brand plan. As a brand, how can we touch people's hearts? What can we do, right? What is our mission? What is our vision? How do we position ourselves in the marketplace so that we can own a little bit of that, you know, niche or of that area? All of that is called a brand platform. And
Yeah.
you can Google it, you can go to our website. There's a lot written about it, but it's really, it's a brand plan. It's not a business plan, but it's brand plan. Once you have that, you understand who your audience is. You understand what you lead with emotionally. You understand, all these questions about brand. And from then you can say, okay, now let's create a name that works for the brand, not just the product, right? Because the thing is, products change, right? You know that, you're in the field. It's like the idea that a lot of entrepreneurs, they pivot, which means they screwed up and then they have to go another way, right? Pivot is an overglorified way of failure, right?
Yeah.
But it's good. It's important. We all pivot, right? I pivoted with my first company into a consultancy. We have to go through this. But because you go through this, the name might have to change, right? If you name your company after your product, and your product, the descriptive name does not relate to the product anymore 5 years down the line because the product pivoted so much. That's why it's so important to have this brand platform, and everything goes back to the brand. So your product can do whatever it wants. You create a tribe. People will love you for what you stand for, not only for your product, right? And then you can create the name, and after the name, you create the logo. And once you have the logo and the name, you can kind of see like, what are the ingredients that are missing from the brand platform? And then make sure that strategically you embody those in your visual design.
Yeah. So if you would like to put that into step 1, step 2, then step 1 would be the brand strategy. Step 2 is the brand name.
Yep.
Step 3 is the brand visuals.
Yep. And then it's the verbal language, right? So it's the visuals and the verbal. The messaging can go hand in hand with the verbal, right? But what is so great about an approach like that, you basically check off all the marks, right? In the end, you make sure that your brand is not only consistent and beautiful, but every single component should work against that brand platform. And you know what else happens that I think is so interesting? If you start with a brand platform, with the brand strategy, no one has egos anymore. It's not about me, right? So if together with the client, with the founders, you create this brand platform, then everyone can point back to the brand platform. It's not about me not liking the color or you having an idea. It's about, no, what would these people like? What would this brand need, right? So it's a really good side effect.
Yeah, of course. And talking about the brand name, I believe you hear this complaint a lot, that almost every name is now taken. Especially domain names, when I come up with a great name that I'm very excited about and go to check the .com version of it, it's almost taken. So it's almost guaranteed that it's not there. Or you will find a Facebook page that is named after that name, or an Instagram account that's named after your name. So how to resolve this dilemma of choosing the right brand name and owning the internet assets related to it?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I have a very simple answer. Try harder.
Yes.
If that is really it. And the reason why I can say this is because my consultancy, Finien, we create names, we create brand names, and we promise our clients that we will get a .com for them, for no money, right? Like, it's part of our package, right? And it's a lot of work, but you can find words, right? You can create words that still sound good. They're easy to say, they're easy to spell, and you can still get the .com, right? There are so many word combinations out there. I can give you an idea, right? We worked with a client recently, and we named the company Elevise. So it's elevate and advice together. Elevise. Super easy to say. Elevise.com, $9 a year, right? It's available. Right? Or we work with a financial company and we call them Anchory because they're in the sports field, and the anchor is what you want financially. So we call them Anchory. And it's very simple, but it takes days of work. Most entrepreneurs say, "Oh my God, I'm sitting down for like a couple of hours, and I'm still don't have a name. I'm gonna sit down again for a couple of hours tomorrow." Well, sit down for a week, you really, you have to, it doesn't come easy. You have to work hard on it, but it's still available. And look, if you, for instance, launch an app, you can absolutely have getxyz.com, right? Like, you can put a descriptor prior or after the name in order to get the .com, but still, you would want to know who owns the actual .com, right? So that later on you can buy the name, you can buy the .com, you can see if you can get it, because if it's a competitor or it's, you know, it's still a problem. You would like to own the .com outright.
Yeah. The most frustrating part is that nobody owns the .com. It's just taken, reserved.
That is the worst.
There's no website. Yeah. No
and that is dangerous, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my advice to when that happens is really go into trademark search, you know, like go deep into the trademark search and see who owns the name. If someone has a .com, but the trademark is still available, you at least know it's not a big company, right? Yeah. I mean, you know that it's not a conglomerate that's sitting on the name, because otherwise they would have definitely trademarked it.
Yeah, yeah. One of the interesting terms that you mention in your books, the term called core brand philosophy. How is that different from brand values and brand mission? And what's the brand philosophy?
You know, there's so many terms out there, right? Mission, vision, purpose, personality, philosophy, right? In the end, they all come to the same, you know, idea, right? Yeah. It's just that the philosophy, you know, it's very much what you stand for, right? Like how do you see the life of your brand that your brand lives in, right? So if you live in fashion, you know, what is your philosophy about fashion? How should garments be created? You know, should it be green? Should it be fair? Should it be, right? Like what is your philosophy about the space that you're in? Which is different than your values. Your values go deeper, right? It is different to what you actually advertise all the time. But a philosophy about how you want to tackle with your brand a certain vertical, I think that is really important. But that's the philosophy. It's like your philosophy about life versus my philosophy about life, right? It's like very top level about how you are within your space.
Yeah, so it's what you stand for so that you can attract haters.
Absolutely. And
right?
once you have haters, you know, for every one hater, there are thousands of lovers, right? And I think that is so important. I have a show too called Hitting the Mark. It's a podcast. And I had some people on that people were really afraid of, right? Women entrepreneurs, Muslim entrepreneurs. It's like, oh my God, right? Like, and I received very negative feedback from people, and I did not realize that's actually a really good thing. Then you know that you're creating change. Then you know you stand for something, you know? So I think the minute that you get negative feedback, you know that you're actually moving the needle into the right direction, and you're going to have a lot more lovers for those haters.
Yeah, of course. And another interesting part that most people don't consider as part of the branding strategy as much as of the maybe marketing strategy, which is what you call the ownable brand differentiators. So what specifically is that, and how to identify it?
You know, I mean, if you're a regular company, if you have a product to offer or a service to offer, there are a lot of components to it. And you look at what do your competitors do and what do you do? And then you check off all the items that both of you do, right? And then there are a couple of items left. And then you have to ask yourself, are these items actually really, are these showstoppers? Are they important? Are they really big? And are they really truly differentiating us? If not, I would say work harder to find those. But if you find one that is a true differentiator, that can become your brand's true differentiator, right? Like that's like you would hone in more and more towards whatever is ownable with your company, if it makes sense, right? And sometimes it's simple words, right? So it could be that your company's more fair than another company, right? It doesn't need to be feature X. It could be simplicity, delight, fairness, you know, whatever it is, right? It could be something that your brand stands for that you see your competitors not standing for. And then you can actually take that and you can start owning it and work your brand messaging more and more towards this one differentiator.
Yeah. Do you have a specific example for that from one of the clients you worked with? Because usually people can easily find a product differentiator. Yes, my product is different than this product in this term, and I can really defend that differentiation. But in terms of a brand, if it's about fairness or about something that's easy to copy, so another company can say that we are more fair and we are more fair. So it's really difficult to defend a brand differentiator. So how do you engineer that so that it's not copied? And if you can illustrate that from a real life example of a client you work with, that would be great.
Well, everything will be copied, right? If it's any good, everything will be copied. Anything, right? From a product feature, which can be totally copied, to a word, right? Like fairness, right? All of it can be copied. But if you own it, right? If you outright own it as a brand, meaning you actually, every single thing you say and do goes back to that. If you do that, your competitors can never catch up, right? Because you just have it so embodied in you that you own it. And that's what I mean by ownable, that you actually so embody it. And I mean, you know, one example, it's a case study out of my book, Bigger Than This, which the entire book is about, you know, commodity businesses that created amazing brands, even though they have a commodity product. And they all kind of like attached one of these bigger ideas to their brand. And, you know, one of those is a company called Everlane. Everlane is a fashion company, and they do very simple fashion, right? Very, very straightforward, very, you know, normal, modern fashion. They call it basics, right? Like basic shirts, basic t-shirts, basics, everything. They launched into the fashion world with radical transparency. They call it radical because it's so 100% transparent, radical transparency. So they actually tell you on their website where your product comes from, who worked on your product, how much it costs them to create the product, right? So if you have a cashmere sweater, they tell you exactly, it costs us $30 to produce this, but you are going to pay $70 for it. But of course, in between, there's all the marketing and all the things we need to do. But our competitors, it's 130, right?
Yeah.
So they're utilizing the direct to consumer model, but they're 100% transparent. And that became their brand. So their brand is not about very simple t-shirts and very simple. It's about radical transparency. And once you coin a term like that and you own that term, because literally from the inside out, from the factory all the way to how someone receives the product, it is 100% transparent. That's what I mean by ownable. Anyone can start, oh, we're transparent too. Yeah, but you have to create it. I mean, your entire operations, right? Everything has to go around that one word, right? That you know, that differentiator.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. And can I borrow the question from the quote behind you, just behind you?
Yes.
Why is branding
It's
so crucial for your startup? So
yeah.
So what an entrepreneur will miss if they don't focus on branding, or think that it is first I need to prioritize sales and profits. Branding is like a fluffy topic that it's only made for big companies with multi-million dollars to invest in their branding. As a startup, this shouldn't be my priority. What would you say to them?
Well, first of all, it should be your priority if you want to be in this business for a couple of years, right? If you're just trying out something and you don't know if it's going to work, don't invest in branding, right? Just like see if someone even likes the product, right? First. But that means for, you know, 99% of startups I know where they say, yeah, I want to do this for a little while, right? I want this to be a real thing. Branding is crucial. I always say it's a layer of insurance, right? Because you're a startup, you're so frail. They can take anything away from you, right? I mean, you know, you don't even have anything yet, right? But the minute you have something, you have a little bit of funding, you have maybe 1 or 2 employees or co-founders, you have a great feature. They're gonna steal all of that, right? Because they can. Everyone is bigger than you right now. Everyone has more power, right? But if you create a brand, if you create these shared values, if there's more to your company than just your product alone, and if you come across as extremely, you know, exciting and lovable and, you know, enticing to your customer, then even if your product has a problem, which it will have because you're a startup, right? Even if you go through all of these issues in the beginning, if you have that brand around you that people agree with, that they like, then you're just bigger than your product, right? And you have this layer of insurance around you that even if all of these bad things happen, people still love what you stand for. And that's why it is so important. And that's why in the quote behind me, which is from my new book, you know, you have to know the word before you spread the gospel, right? I mean, you have to know what you're saying before you start chanting it, right? And so I think that many startups say, I have a product. Well, good. Do you have a brand? Well, let's create a brand, right? It's important.
Yeah, I believe many of the startups and entrepreneurs who will be listening to us now, most of them, or a big percentage of them, may realize that now their brand is not serving them really well, and they will have to start a rebranding process. So how to start this massive transformation in the way they do everything, and from a customer perspective, and maybe they discover that they must change the name, which is a big thing. So how do you approach such projects, critical projects?
Yeah, I mean, I don't approach it that much differently. I still use the same, you know, process, because it is still very linear. The only difference is that there's a lot of brand legacy, that there's, you know, but we also have data, right? Because with a startup, you don't have any data. With existing companies, you have data. You know what people like, what people don't like. You also have a business trajectory of where the business is going to go. I always advise my clients when they go for a rebranding that there's something bigger to the rebranding than just, you know, hey, we want to change the name because we have a new CEO. That's not it, right? It's, hey, we need to change the name because someone else has the trademark, or we need to change the name because it doesn't resonate with our product anymore. But there needs to be a bigger story behind that. And then you can rebrand and actually have it be something that people celebrate, because they're like, oh yeah, we know everything has been old, you know, we haven't really pushed hard, but now that the product changes, or now that, you know, leadership changes and there's a new idea of where the company is going, then you can actually create a brand that even your customers will celebrate, because they see great change, they see positive change, you know, and they've always been kind of like waiting for that quietly. So it's important that all the stakeholders are part of it too, right? It's important that when you have a company, you know, a certain size, that at least the leadership from the top down, the top 5, 6, 10 people are all involved in this, because they have to embrace it, because a change like that isn't easy, and everyone has to really be part of that.
I love the idea of celebrating with the customers, because yes, when you change the brand name, it is a big event, and it must be celebrated, and you get customers' engagement, especially your loyal fans. I love that idea, of course. Well, at the end, I cannot get enough of you, but just to respect your time, at the end, what is your number one advice for someone who wants to be a really great, successful entrepreneur?
If you want to be a really great entrepreneur, you have to know how to say no. I think it is, you will get so many opportunities right and left, right? And your time is so valuable, and you have so little of it, that if you have a very, you know, you have to have a great business plan, you have to have a great brand plan. So basically it's all about planning, and it's all about time management, and you will get a lot of amazing opportunities that you have to say no to in order to say yes to only the ones that fit your plan, right? So you have to be extremely focused, extremely focused.
Wow, it's a really valuable advice, because most entrepreneurs are opportunity driven, not strategically driven. So thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for all the tips and insights that you shared with us today. You have been great, and I highly recommend our listeners to check your latest book, the Brand Therapy book. And I love how you call this the shortest branding book ever written, right? It's full of actionable items.
And the smallest. This is my phone.
Wow.
The smallest and shortest.
I love that straight to the point books, without no fluff, no, just straight to the point tips. So
all about focus and clarity, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much, and I hope to meet soon in Cairo.
Yes, that would be nice. Thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.